Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Wednesday, November 18th, and we can probably fairly quickly here just dispense with the accountability section. I've been having to do some side projects that have been taking up Tuesdays and Thursdays anyway, so I literally got nothing done yesterday. Um, and it's not even so much a case of it. I was getting all my time taken up at that time. It's just that I was messing with my sleep schedule. So, I woke up to do the thing that I needed to do, and then and these are all a variety of real world things that don't really matter. Hey, I got a friend request. This is a first for Shadowverse. I will approve. Sure, why not? Um, but yeah, on top of that, then it just woke me up early. Then I went to sleep. Then I woke up again. It doesn't help that I'm trying to play Disgaea, and I've gotten like one episode in, and now I'm 40 minutes in, and that's not the most thrilling game ever at the moment. I think there is probably an argument to be made that I am right now just not super enthused about playing any games. We're hitting that seasonal affective disorder time in the fall that seems to affect me and a lot of people. Um, where, alright, well, Bloodcraft and Portalcraft, I guess is what we're playing today. Let's open the pack first, though. If I remember to do that, yep. Yeah, I just feel like we're kind of always down in the dumps a little bit um in the fall, in the winter times, and that kind of slows me down. I did work on my server some more, which I'm sure everybody is completely tired of hearing about that, but um, still just banging my head against using the Injix web hosting reverse proxy server to try and get all of that to work. One of the things I realized is that some of these servers are so designed in the Docker containers that they're built into, like, when you make that sandboxed Docker container of the software, it's then so tightly scripted to only work one way and one way only that it kind of does not have a level of intercompatibility with any kind of custom setup or anything it's not expecting. It's a rigidness, which inherently, if you're going to use Docker, there might be a very heavy conversation you need to have with yourself about, is this Docker container going to do its own thing and its own thing only and have no interaction with anything else to the point where it can't run other programs such as antiviruses or email programs. Although I did make a quick script to allow it to email by simply having a folder that it can access that the main computer, the outside of the sandbox, can see. And so I just tell it to write a text file to that folder, and then every minute it runs a script to see if there's any files in that folder, and then it then simply prints out whatever text is in those files and emails them, which is useful for me, of course, because I already have the end-to-end encryption modification going on, so it can then internally on the same computer write a text file that's unencrypted completely, and then the script will send it to the end-to-end encryption scripts and pass it along. I don't know what I specifically would want to do. this turn, I think what you want to do is probably this. And yeah, just little tweaks, trying to get things to work and trying to get it all nice and smooth and nicely configured, which inevitably it's still not going to work. If you try to bring it to a different computer, inevitably there's going to be something that's just not quite right, and there's still too many tweaks going on outside of the sandboxes that just have to happen. So your best bet still, I think, would be to have a full copy of the server and just restore from backup. Speaking of trying to restore from backup, I tried to restore the files that looked like they were there, but apparently they actually weren't there on my old RAID array. In a lot of ways, I think that might be completely just forever lost, because at the current moment I was able to get it to mount, but it's just the folders, apparently. Like, no files at all. It seems to have potentially mounted like 17 gigabytes of data, but 17 gigabytes is way too small unless it had been just lying to me the whole time as far as what the level of space was being taken up, which might be a case. I do have a thought that perhaps if I disabled deduplication, that might solve something, but I think there's a decent chance that the files are gone too. Which, some of that's recoverable. A lot of it is. Some of it is just gone. Not as much as you would really think, though, because most of what I had before was gone anyways. And so it may just be time to give up and move on. And I think that's where I'm going to start going, is I'm going to start just saying, hey, let's just recreate the list here of things you would like to have, and let's rethink about that list and see what is useful information, what isn't. Ironically, like, things I've programmed and set up, pretty much none of that was ever on the backup in the first place. And it was long since lost to time. I don't believe I even was given a CD or a copy of my code from any of the classes I took at all. And so there was like some amazing stuff I did, but in a weird way, the security procedures and the teachers I had would have been somewhat rightfully scared if somebody pulled out a floppy disk drive, and it would have been certainly a floppy disk drive or a zip drive, maybe a zip drive, but in one class, but there was no like CD burners, and they weren't burnable CDs weren't cheap enough that they could have given each student a copy of their code. And I imagine that's even at like the thesis level. Well, everything before the thesis level. Theses are like published and kept in the Library of Congress. I think, I'm pretty sure. But even before that, any project you would have worked on would have been long since lost. And even now, I imagine if you're a student and you're turning in a paper, it's not getting scanned And the physical paper stuff is not getting scanned and put into any kind of documents backup, and any kind of code you would have done probably is not getting scanned either. I do know I have bits and pieces of a few projects where I was physically printing out the code, and then while working a different job I was handwriting the code and visualizing the code without any feedback, which is a very old-fashioned way of doing things. Certainly that's kind of what you did back in the days with punch cards and like magnetic tape and things like that, is that you would have to have computer scientists literally write the code out by hand, and then you might even on a job for working for something like NASA or something, you might have peer review or other people looking at your code even before it gets programmed in, because the computers were just so slow and they had to be shared by in between hundreds of other people potentially, that you really needed to know if that code was going to work before you even tried to make a punch card out of it and have it run. Unlike modern times where everybody has a computer and you can just willy-nilly write a program and then immediately get error messages from the compiler, which you wouldn't have gotten error messages because there wouldn't have been a compiler in the old days. You would literally have to figure out why it's not working, or why it's not working the way you expect it to work, just by random guessing more than anything else. Okay. Let's do this. Evolve.
Troublemaker.
Hit that. Hit that. In the turn. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to rebuild and rethink. A lot of these projects certainly are just heavily ambitious, and they have no users, as it were. There's a kind of psycho administrator in the form of me with no users, and nobody I really would even want to grant access to users. Plus, being such a computer nerd as I am, and I have just over the past 6 months gotten really back into it, it's just incredibly difficult to find any characters, any people that are even interested in computers these days. I'll quickly start covering the news because, frankly, we started late again. Sleep schedule is just going to be weird, probably for at least 3 or 4 more weeks, probably till the end of the year. I did hear that the new macOS Big Sur is oddly becoming more secure, and security is always a good thing, except for in the fact that it's often always a terrible thing as far as just ease of use. And so, like, Big Sur is going to be a lot more like Windows, apparently, and a lot more like Android, where you're going to get prompts and requests to access more and more things. Mostly they're trying to keep it all into the documents file, but like every program, depending on how many actual programs even an average person using macOS uses, is going to ask for access, and I heard that the way the fonts are is just a little bit ugly in Big Sur, which is the newest version of macOS. I don't know why they would go that way. That definitely feels like something that is against their brand. One could say that definitely feels like something that Steve Jobs would not have ever allowed. But to get away from the potential Steve Jobs worship, at the end of the day, I think Apple's brand has been built around the idea of making a walled garden and a very simple product, and with severely decreased compatibility that's happening with Apple software, macOS software, with increased security that's going to become arduous, and with changing the appearance away from what has been the standard so that the people have to learn something new, it definitely feels like that Apple is dropping the ball on what an Apple product would be, or what people would expect from an Apple product. Now, at a certain level, you can just make the argument that Apple users are sheep and they will just follow as long as they can have that Apple logo on the back of their computer, their laptop, and they will just keep going that way. There definitely has been a decreased emphasis on having Mac machines and MacBooks in favor of iPads and iPhones. But at a certain level, if you look at Big Sur and how it's going and how macOS in general is going, you kind of have to assume that the Apples and iPhones, the iOS software, will start going that way too. So it doesn't look good. Although if you're going to compare iOS to like Android has its security things, and there are pop-ups when you first install an app. That's certainly true. Just gonna go ahead and play this. So I don't know if there's anything that's going to be super simple, which is what I think there still will be an audience for, is people that want something really dumbed down. And we've kind of lost the easy modes, or we're seemingly increasingly losing the easy modes for phones, which is going to leave some older people in the dust, because I guarantee you that there's still a decent amount of people out there that have yet to get a cell phone and are increasingly going to need to make that decision at some point. Anyways, well, that's not video game related at all, so let's talk about video games. Gamatsu has an article here. Super Mario 3D All-Stars version 1.1 update adds inverted camera controls and Super Mario Sunshine GameCube controller support. Play using the same controls as the original GameCube release, which I think the controls in the GameCube release were probably better, but certainly that was the bare minimum. Let's see, do this, and then do this.
I can devour your dreams.
And then do this.
You won't wake up. Now
We'll hit
close
that.
your eyes.
We'll hit that. And we'll hit that.
I knew this would happen.
Here we have a TechRaptor article. Thunder Group is going to go public, valued at nearly 400 million. Who is Thunder Group? Swedish holding company. Let's see. They is an original merger between SteamWorld developers Image and Form and Fee developers Zoink. So, okay, 3 companies that have made some small success. Let's see.
Come on in. Take a seat.
IO Interactive has a new project that they're going to announce November 19th. And we'll see what that is. Like, you would almost certainly think that it is just an announcement of another Hitman thing, but there is some small hope there when they say new project that they actually mean new project, and that they don't really just mean a new project that is a sequel to a new a continuing series. Although the fact that it's called new project and not new series or new game indicates it probably is a continuation of Hitman. It'd be very weird if IO Interactive did any other continuation of anything else. I'm not sure they've even worked on anything else. Gametsu has a tweet here. The PlayStation 5 has sold 118,085 units in the first 4 days in Japan. The Series X and Series S sold 20,534 units in the first 6 days, which really, relatively speaking, that and maybe this means I'm an Xbox fanboy, that's an incredibly high amount compared to the sales we've seen for the Xbox One in the past couple years that we've been watching sales. But undoubtedly, the PlayStation 5 selling 6 times as much and being able to sell that much in general is an impressive number, because I wasn't really sold on the idea that the Japanese would buy a PlayStation this time around at all.
You'll accept me, won't you?
So yeah, seeing a good
This world and the next are unchanging.
seeing like, alright, that was crazy. Whatever that just did. Let's look at this card. Randomly put followers of different costs from your deck into play until the area is full, then destroy those followers. Which might give her more things. Then return deal 1 damage.
How about we have some fun?
I am the thunder of war incarnate.
Let's see. This would do damage to a random enemy follower.
Light 'em up
I think probably it's safe to do that.
for
A
me.
memento waits.
I don't think this is real news, but I'll mention it. Philadelphia Cream Cheese is getting into the console wars with the Philly Series 5. If they really sell like Philadelphia the cream cheese that is in a special casing and is designed to be kind of fancy looking, yeah, that'd be kind of silly. That, like, the ridiculousness thing here is that if this really sells, there will be some jerk parent that does something like that and buys it and gives it to their kids instead of a real game console that they really would want. But yeah, that just seems like a dangerous joke product that doesn't need to exist. You don't need to spend the time and investment and the efforts to create a product like that. Alright, so if we do 2 damage there, what else can we do? Vengeance is now enabled. We can play that. We can play that.
No one else has to know.
We'll just kill that, I guess. I don't know of any, like, any good product where this would make sense. I think it's crass, frankly. And it's certainly stupid. If a single person ever buys Philly cream cheese because of a ad talking about video games, is that you've really messed up there. In this effort for products that inevitably should be commodities and shouldn't need to advertise at all, the effort for them to make their products cool is a point, certainly, where if I were more energetic, more awake, I could go on to a economics rant about just how ridiculous it is that advertising is allowed at all. I'd say that look up those Canadian brand products where it's just basically a white box with a black lettering saying what's on it, and that's it. And that's the way everything really should be, for the sake of kids and the weak-minded, at the very least, who would be persuaded to buy a different brand based on packaging.
Stained in blood. Let me take the lead.
A fine battle.
Moving forward, we have Destiny 2's Stadia version will be free going forward. So, I don't know why people would really want to play Stadia though right now when you just have an announcement that like Google Photos is shutting down some of its service or charging more. And I know there's a new YouTube terms of service that's probably got something horrible in it that's gonna, like, I'm anticipating, not with in a good way, that I'm gonna look at this new terms of service and it's gonna say something along the lines of either something as extreme as we're gonna delete all of your videos on your channel because you don't have enough subscribers, or maybe more likely we're just never gonna let people into the YouTube Partner Program, or very possibly we're just gonna have more arduous rules and regulations, which frankly what's in the terms of service versus what's in the what's actually enforced are miles apart anyways. I wouldn't be surprised now that the election, the US election, is over, if there are a ton of like fake news / political restrictions that will selectively be enforced only against people that YouTube doesn't like, and will not be enforced at all by against larger news channels as such. There was this story: Apple will reduce App Store cuts to 15% for most developers starting January 1st. any developer that earns less than 1 million in revenue per year is eligible. So Apple is trying to throw people a bone. I think that inherently would exclude Fortnite, even if it was on the App Store anyways, but I think that they've gotten enough of the message that these developers are not making enough money to really think about staying on the App Store. And that's really what needs to happen more than anything, is there needs to be a mass exodus of good developers making good products from the App Store and moving it to like the Android Play Store. But I doubt that would happen because you don't make money, frankly, on either storefronts. You make more money on the App Store, from what I hear, and you barely make money at that. Next, speaking of Fortnite and House Party, apparently that whatever House Party is, whether it's a software or a mod or something, it's bringing in video chat to Fortnite, which I feel like inherently this is not something that's going to go as well as they hope. Bringing in more chat features to a game that is almost exclusively played by kids, and I guess the question at a certain point would come down to, is this really a game that is going to be played by kids anymore, or is Fortnite on its outs at this point now that everybody's just playing Among Us? Either one could be the case. I imagine Fortnite still has a decent level of popularity, but I haven't heard anybody say anything new about Fortnite outside of the lawsuit in quite a while, and so yeah, I'm not hearing anything about like V-Bucks scams or anything like that significantly happening. Of course, I'm not listening particularly well for that kind of news either. Here we have a game on Steam called Just Take Your Left, and from the looks of it, it seems to be a hand-drawn animation game, like the Laserdisc games, where there's going to basically be a QuickTime choice, and the QuickTime choice is going to either be right or wrong. But they're calling it more of a point-and-click game, which would be different from like Space Ace. That's what I was thinking of. And there might be a really good reason for that. Like, there's probably a great reason why we only saw three games like those games and nothing more. Just take Your Left is $3.99 in English. I think that is an easy choice to put on the follow list. Maybe it is more of a point-and-click adventure game, so you're not inherently missing out on animation, and it's not randomized like Space Ace was. Or Dragon's Lair was the other game. Dragon's Lair 2. See, next we have a game on here called Cinema Simulator, which is clearly a Chinese low-effort asset flip type modeling simulation game. $1, English Chinese, easily ignored. We have, let's see, let's play that, and then hit that. hope this works.
Hey, nothing personal.
So we're gonna lose probably. Yep.
Power of mortality.
You know, it does occur to me as I'm sitting here being very quiet, and this is a weird way to potentially take my channel, is to start becoming just really, really quiet. And that's a lot of Twitch streamers though. Like they do that, and don't say a lot. But it does occur to me that I might need a game like this guy, as some JRPG that just is grindy and takes forever, where I could just sit in mostly silence and play the game.
Is fighting and despair all you know?
Like, it's fairly obvious at this point I don't have a clue as far as what people want to see in my content, but it almost certainly isn't what I am doing. So if I was just trying to get viewers and didn't care about how I played a game or how I made my content, and wasn't trying to at some level entertain myself, then I probably would shift things up. Moving on, we have a Gamatsu Famitsu review scores. So we have a game called Carto, 32 out of 40 Descenders, 32 out of 40 Just Dance 2021, 32 out of 40 Labyrinth of Galleria, Coven of Dusk, 33 out of 40 Last Labyrinth for the PlayStation VR, 31 out of 40 Northgard, 31 out of 40 Police X Heroine, Love Paternia, Love Na, Rhythm de Taiho Shimasu is 28 out of 40. That's almost certainly a visual novel. Ride 4, 28 out of 40. And Zoid's Wild Infinite Blast for Switch, 29 out of 40. There's actually a higher number of relatively average but slightly better games this week. I wonder if maybe their review scores are kind of shifting a little bit because of just a slightly lowered expectations as far as the Famitsu reviewers. I could definitely see that. It'd be very, very hard to think back to the last great like AAA game or near perfect game, and like compare current games to that. I don't even know what game you would talk about like that. Are you going back as far as Breath of the Wild? Cyberpunk 2077 would almost certainly be a candidate for a game like that to use as a touchstone and a tent pole. But yeah, I don't know what game you'd even talk about right now. Maybe if you had played the last Assassin's Creed game or the current Assassin's Creed game, maybe you'd use that as a touchstone. I'd have to think about what even people said were the games of the years for 2019. Let's see.
All magic guns can be kind of finicky. Sleep.
Okay.
Do you know my master? Cleansing mode. Salvation is surely awaits. Play my part.
There definitely are some cards here that need to be eliminated, like this card never works. I also wanted to mention, as I'm looking at the screenshot of Labyrinth of Galleria. Here you have a game that definitely feels like it's more designed for the Switch for a JRPG. It's much more visual compared to something like Disgaea. It seems like you've got groups of heroes being grouped up here instead of just individual heroes always. A lot of information being put directly on the screen. Theoretically, a lot of buttons here that may be directly mapped to things. At a certain level, the core conceit of a JRPG is going to be the stumbling block, because you just don't know if that's what... Well, I don't know if that's what I want. Deal 1, and then evolve to 5, and then attack. Or deal this, and attack.
Just follow my tune, and away we go.
Accept harmony.
Just follow the tune of my magical pipe.
War is such sorrow.
See, hit that one on the field. Hit that.
Play my part.
And hit that. Gamatsu has an article here of Void TRRL : whatever. Terrarium Plus has been announced for PlayStation 5. New features coming to PlayStation 4 and Switch as paid downloadable content. This was that weird game where you're playing as like a sea coral or something and then anthropomorphized as kind of a chibi anime girl that has a weird like sea coral coming out of her eye, which is a little grotesque, a little gory. I couldn't ever really figure out if that was intentional or not. Let's see. Hide artifact. Let's go ahead and hit this. And then
The heavens will hear the roar of my sword. This is
do
the end.
that.
War is such sorrow.
And then I guess we'll do that.
Play my part.
And do that. Never heard of like if anybody actually liked Void Terrarium. So that's a weird game for it to just kind of happen and come out, and then they're going to release more DLC, but they probably already planned on releasing DLC. That's inherently the problem with DLC in general, is that you might have a terrible flop of a game and you still need to somehow do something with the DLC, and almost certainly if it didn't sell, you don't want to then give away the content for free, but you may very well have to. See, I'm just like one more victory and I'd be done for today. I guess I could just play Forestcraft at that point. This is probably the biggest news for today. Embracer Group has acquired 34 Big Things, Flying Wild Hog, Nimble Giant Entertainment, Purple Lamp Studios, Snapshot Games, and Zen Studios and more. Now, of all those companies, Zen Studios is the only one I recognize as the people who make Pinball FX. And this is the THQ Nordic parent company, which is just doing the exact same thing that the original THQ did, which is just acquiring as many companies as possible. At the current moment, it's not a bad thought. If you have the money and you've got nothing better to do with it, I bet you can get a lot of companies on great discount. But then you really are just making this monolith company that at best the only thing it could possibly do is be a competitor to something like Microsoft, who's also acquiring a bunch of companies, and PlayStation's not even really playing that game yet. We've seen also the GTA company acquire a few companies, and Ubisoft would like to acquire companies if they weren't in the middle of scandals, I imagine. But
Is in my orbit.
Cleansing mode.
I don't know how that all gets merged into anything great. Because unless Embracer Group is going to try and have everybody make a new game engine, and it's very late in the game to potentially think about making a new game engine. I don't know how much shared code is really going to be that useful, or how much of anything you really benefit by having so many different companies. Inevitably, when you see these big mergers or acquisitions, they get followed with a lot of layoffs in the next cycle of economic downturn. Even if you had bought a company cheaply during the cycle of the previous economic downturn, I wouldn't be surprised if 4 to 8 years from now we start to hear of major layoffs and or major breakups of Embracer Group companies or similar companies like Embracer Group.
The rest to you.
Okay. Do this. And then we do this. And then
Cleansing
we
mode.
do this.
Me whiskers.
I'll play my part.
Do that.
Sweep the legs.
I'll go ahead and do that.
I leave the rest to you.
And then end the turn.
Can you?
So they've got a full list here. 34 Big Things is behind the Redout franchise.
Into Moonride.
It's worth mentioning, though, they may acquire these companies and just be acquiring the rights to their games because all of the employees have long since left who are qualified, or they've just kind of skilled out. I wouldn't be surprised, particularly in video game development, if there is a decent number of people who have just not stayed up with modern styles of game design, and so they can only make old games. Thinking Ape, they made mobile games of Kingdoms at War and Casino XX. Coffee Stain North, it collaborated with Coffee Stain Studios on Goat Simulator and A Story About My Uncle.
Time to get started.
Flying Wild Hogs is the developer behind Shadow Warrior, which a lot of these companies seem like they've only done one thing. And we have a mobile game developer, PV Pets Tank Battle Royale, and The Walking Dead Road to Survival, which I heavily suspect is not one of the good Walking Dead games, because there was very few of those. Let's see, Madhead Games is the developer behind Mystery Case Files and the Dark Parable series. Nimble Giant Entertainment. A lot of these also are like European companies too. Belgrade. So depending on your personal opinion on the way the European Union is going to go in the next few years, might drastically affect where the video game industry in general in Europe will go.
How about we have some fun?
We have Nimble Giant Entertainment is the developer behind Quantum League, which is a game in development. Purple Lamp Studios is behind SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. which is weird because I would have thought for sure they had done that in-house with the many companies they had already acquired. It's weird to find out now that actually probably one of the most interesting games that has come out from THQ Nordic in general was actually just published by them. Here we have Quantic Lab, companies that is software outsourcing company specialized in quality assurance. I could see acquiring a company like that and them not really having to have much under the belt, although it would make a lot of sense for them to say we did QA on this game, and this game, but any game they mention, almost certainly somebody would come back and say, well, actually that game was fairly buggy. So that's a lose-lose scenario. Here we have Silent Games is working on an upcoming game series in an original universe. Snapshot Games is the developer of a game called Phoenix Point. A lot of these are also mentioning it's like 30 staff, 65 staff. So there's clearly going to be some mergers in physical locations and these companies to have 200 people staffs in a specific office, which might be a good thing, but might not be. Yeah, I was thinking about just there's this dumb show that has since been canceled, but it still gets rerun a lot, called Scorpion, and it's a bunch of alleged geniuses / autistic nerds, and it's weird how their whole office is set up from the perspective of that, because everybody is within earshot of everybody. It's kind of an open floor plan office, and I feel like geniuses and / autistic nerds would definitely want to create their own little kingdom, their own little area. They would definitely want offices. They definitely want soundproofing. They would not want to have to talk to even the other nerds that much. Just, I guess this is just a permanent effect. I didn't realize that. It's not like a fanfare effect.
Check this out. My power's waking time to dance.
So I'm not from that thought process. I'm not sure if having 400 people in the same office really works. Programming and developing games, like whether you're animating, sound, audio, engineering, or programming, which would be the three big ones. Even if you're just QAing, a lot of that stuff is inherently done as a thing that occurs as a solo activity and will never really has no way of not being a solo activity. There are little points, certainly if you're having trouble with code, where you might be able to walk over and ask somebody else, assuming that they actually would help you and talk to you, which is a large assumption, and not just tell you that they're too busy to do your work on top of their work. That was a weird way to win. Haven't lost that many times that way very often. But you could also email people, certainly if you're having that kind of trouble, and then they'll just ignore your email. Sandbox Studio Strategies is a PR and influencer agency, which I don't know if you need an in-house PR influencer agency. And then Zen Studios is behind Operinica, The Stolen Sun, never heard of it, and the Pinfall FX series, amongst amongst others. One of the things I think that is probably most worthy of pointing out is that the Pinball FX Series 2 is heavily microtransactional with buying each individual table, so that might be an indication where Embracer Group might be going. If we look at the actual logos, I recognize Zen, of course. I don't really recognize Flying Wild Hog. I think I've seen a Thinking Ape and maybe Mad Head, but the rest of these I don't think I've ever seen at all. And that's probably saying quite a lot. It seems like Embracer Group in particular also likes to announce acquisitions at the same time, probably at like convention shareholder meetings. Moving on, Komatsu has an article here. Koei Tecmo has trademarked Atelier Online, Alchemist of Brazil, or Brazil, in Canada and Europe. Square Enix has trademarked Infinity Strash in Australia. Strash may be a bad word to use. I'm not sure I like the idea of an Atelier game, but it seems like it's a cell phone game anyways. Apparently Infinity Strash is the subtitle of a Dragon Quest adventure of die action RPG.
Do you know my master? Cleansing mode.
So we've got some other games that are going to be announced. Here we have a game tag nudity, so let me just make sure the screenshots are YouTube family friendly. Yes, it is. Here we have a RPG Maker game with Asian characters. Decent, almost artistic look here of two elf girl characters, but then you look at the actual screenshots and it's just an RPG Maker game. I don't even see in the screenshots the same character as these two characters. Like, it seems like you're playing as a different character. English not supported, $13.49, Chinese only. And if there is adult content in here, I am highly suspect on the quality of it. Open Critic has an article here. Assassin's Creed Valhalla has the biggest launch in the series history. I think a lot of that might very well have to do with the fact that there's not a lot of competition, but also I think there is a fairly heavy focus at the moment around the idea of having and playing games around the Viking mythos. And Vikings may just be the new in thing for video games for a couple years after God of War. Here we have a game on Steam called Secure the Skies, which looks like it's a polygonal 3D flyer, which I think would make me motion sick potentially. And it's just a lot of cases where the ship itself seems to be obscured with all the garbage in the background. $2.99 English only. Yeah, doesn't look like anything that would interest me. Alright, let's do this.
Back to the fight. Please let me survive this.
Entering attack mode.
This. And that. See, next we have a game on Steam called Goop Loop, which seems to be a physics experiment project, not really a game. Early access, $1.99, English only. Nothing there. Not a loss. Although I can't be particularly particularly upset with the losses since we got like 2 quick victories to start with. TechRaptor has an article here. Epic Games acquires the facial animation firm Hypersense. So on top of partnering with someone else to get video chat in your kid's game, you now have the company that makes Fortnite has just acquired the software to scan in people's faces and inevitably put them in the servers of every country everywhere, and inevitably have people's faces in some database. That seems incredibly invasive. And if there was no reason to like forbid your kid to play Fortnite before, there might be a good reason now, or at least forbid that. And inherently, a software like that, if it is going to be in a kid's game like Fortnite, it would be fairly easy to scan some other image and map it to the face of a character. So inevitably you're going to have people with dong pics as their face on whatever game it is, which I assume it's Fortnite, because I don't think Epic really has anything else to offer.
You know my master?
They certainly don't really have the Epic Game Store. They've done nothing with that. Twitch on November 14th was currently investigating impacting emotes with drops, redemptions, and chat availability. An issue impacting emotes with drops, redemptions. The issue should be now resolved. Okay, so we see another Twitch bug, but I will say Twitch has been fairly good about not highlighting its problems lately. Perhaps some of that also has to do with the fact that I have just not been paying attention much to Twitch or any of the other Twitter feed posts. So I may just be missing a decent amount of news, which is fine, frankly. Like, at a certain point you get to this level, it's like, what's the point of knowing a lot of this news anyways? It's just to keep you informed, but it's kind of like watching CNN or something where you get the information and then the next day it's breaking news, something else, and the information you got the day before really wasn't that relevant. Or if it was relevant, it's getting repeated again this day. But at a certain point, then that just kind of inevitably makes me a intentionally lesser informed video game critic, and that's not good, a good place to hang your hat at the very least, even if it really doesn't matter. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article here for the Switch. Root Double Before the Crime After Days Extended Edition launches November 26th. This is a visual novel that, is it part of the Root series or is it a different game? I feel like it's not actually part of the other games that are called Root, which would make sense. Root's a fairly generic term. BCAD. Yeah, we can see some anime characters and murder mystery, visual novel, fancy animation that will no way be anything close to what it looks like when you actually play the game. Let's do this. Let's go and evolve. Need to hurry up. I chose not to eat any food. I shouldn't have done that. I'm actually kind of running a little low on variety of food. I have food certainly, but I was trying to avoid ordering groceries around Thanksgiving, but I think that probably won't work. But I did manage to order a lot of Thanksgiving foods that I planned on cooking, so I may very well have a decent amount of leftovers for a while too. Here we have a Gamma Sutra article. Thunderbolt Group intends to go public and raise cash for further acquisitions, which seems like this keeps happening. Like, it's ridiculous that acquisitions are allowed at all. It would be a very interesting, different story if the world said no, you can never acquire a company at all, or at least that can't be your stated goal as a company, is to just be an acquisition hungry company. They know you actually have to make a product that actually has to be your first, foremost, and only focus. Okay. If I rush this up, I think what I can do is this, and then this, and then hit that. RetroArch on Steam is still to be announced. You can now request access to be a playtester. If you see all the cores here, this is probably a considerably smaller number of cores, of the lesser cores that really wouldn't matter that much, I think, to most people, but it might matter to a lot of people. But they are making progress, slow progress frankly, but progress nonetheless, to launching on Steam. I think they are somewhat rightfully accurate in estimating that it'll be a fairly big deal once it actually does come out, and there will be a lot of people that are going to just definitely want the software to work completely. Here we have a game on Steam called Tarzan VR Issue 1 The Great Ape, which this looks like an old Tarzan comic, but the actual game seems to be new 3D animation. Does this idea work at all? I don't think so, because first of all, you're charging $14.99 for what is effectively a comic book, and they've already got an issue 2, which means you'd have to continue, so you're really charging minimum $29.72 or maybe $23.98. Plus, you have to have a $600 VR headset. Plus, comic books are intended at least for kids. So, I don't know how you work around that mentality either. Like, I don't know how you put a $600 headset on a kid and feel safe about that. I guess I have to put something like this on the follow list, though. I'd like to see the number of reviews. That's least I can do. No, how does this work? Never an effect destroys defense, deal 2 random damage. Okay. So.
Never said
So I need to be able to kill this character before she can restore defense twice. Maybe once. So people are trying this strategy, but it's not working very well. Just like that. I did figure out how the wind chest, which I don't think we're doing the wind chests anymore. I think those just ended. Let's go back home and check on that. Since we've done all the missions now. Slowly making progress. Still a decent number of achievements though that we haven't made. So yeah, we're not doing the wind chests at the moment, but when it does say that, it often says like 1 of 5, 2 of 5, 3 of 5, and then it will just say nothing and just treasure chest. What I think I've figured out is that means that throughout that entire period, you can just constantly play to get all those wind chests, and I think that's exactly what I did. I don't think there's a daily limit on the number of wind chests you can get, so it's not like you can get 5. And they make that fairly confusing. But that is a situation that at least maybe now I understand a little bit better. Moving on, I'm trying to wrap up here, frankly, and I haven't made any progress. We have a review for the game The Pathless from Tech Raptor, which is the Falcon game, one of 2 or 3 Falcon games we saw announced. They give it an 8.5. The Pathless offers players a beautifully heartbreaking way to revive a dead world by forging a bond between you and an eagle alone. Every so often you come across a corpse of a fallen and you can see their final thoughts, moments before death, which elevate the tragedy and sadness of the world around you. Even then, you never really feel lost, both literally or figuratively, mainly because you feel like as long as you have your eagle by your side, you're just going to be fine. That's a long recap for Tech Raptor. Pros: simple, minimalistic gameplay, emotionally stirring soundtrack, absent of character death makes for a less pressured experience. Cons: puzzles can get repetitive, the variety of bosses isn't enough, and it's hard to... and he had to reset twice due to glitches. Alright, well, Pathless sounds good. Game of Sutra has the same article. Embrace a Group acquires 13 studios, including Shadow Warrior developer Flying Wild Hog. Maybe you wouldn't have wanted to acquire exactly 13 studios. That, like, I don't think Lucky 13 is a thing there. Here we have a game on Steam called Do I Smell Pizza, which looks like it is a tower defense game where it's making fun of fat people that are trying to make their way to pizza and rats. It's early access. It's $1.79. It's English only. The problem here, of course, is it's a tower defense game. The animation's not terrible, but yeah, it's still a tower defense game. And it's potentially making fun of people, which is not a kind thing to do, to say the least. G4 TV is tweeting up a storm at this point, in the sense that now they are confirming the reunion special itself. Kind of only confirmed that they were going to bring back the old people and talk about the old stuff, and G4 wasn't just going to be a new TV channel / YouTube channel, whatever. Looks like it's a YouTube channel, really, first and foremost. But I thought maybe the reunion special could have been a case of, let's see, frankly,
Not one for pranks.
let's just go ahead and end the turn. There's just like no reason not to. I thought maybe the reunion special was going to talk about the old stuff, but there's this person named Dr. Lupo that's going to be supporting it, and that got retweeted. But here they have this latest, do we have any more paintball guns? And this is just straight up a footage of an old Attack of the Show skit with like all the old characters. So yeah, I'm not sure we've seen Kevin Pereira actually say anything as far as him coming back. And at a certain level, it's a little bit weird to bring back Attack of the Show if G4 is going to be a video game show, because Attack of the Show in its core was more of a talk soup daily. Here's some YouTube videos, here's some things we're gonna talk about, here's some events, here's some news we're gonna talk about, but not particularly video game news. Like it probably was somewhat predictable that G4 would come back, since we know that the Tech TV content had been acquired by This Week in Tech and that group. They had gotten at least the name back to one of their shows, so there clearly was somebody who owned the rights to what was Tech TV / G4 and then just became G4. Somebody was trying to sell off the rights to a lot of that naming stuff. But yeah, it was fairly possible that they were gonna just be the all new content G4 stuff. But I'm expecting now to see at least 50% of old stuff. And there isn't a lot of old stuff, frankly, to show that's relevant, so that's going to be weird. I don't know how they're really going to do this. It is a very interesting question as to what you would do with G4. What I would do is I would definitely have at least 6 new shows, and then you could maybe take up an hour or two. If you're really trying to schedule this like a primetime channel, you'd want at least 2 new shows to air every Monday through Friday, and then an hour of an old X-Play and an hour of an old Attack of the Show. Maybe you could bring back some of the other shows too. Like maybe you make the new shows just be the things that are the old shows. What I meant to say there is maybe you bring back like Screensavers or the cinematics one, and you make new episodes of that and act as if the channel hasn't been canceled for nearly a decade. But yeah, you need new content desperately, and frankly, you need new actors, new people. I feel like there is a major danger here for people to get hyped about G4, and then for it to be just like Geek and Sundry, where Geek and Sundry had Felicia Day back when Felicia Day was probably at her peak as far as an actress. And then she disappeared, and I believe had a baby and kind of disappeared from acting at that point. And you had the other guy, the Nerdist guy, before he was Me Too'd, and a lot of his friends abandoned him before and he was kind of revealed, I think, to be slightly a jerk, and then a crazy a workaholic, like anyone who's successful in Hollywood is a crazy workaholic. But yeah, Geek and Sundry had that, and then they had Will Wheaton, and they Will Wheaton was kind of hated even on day one, but he only got more annoying as you potentially would have learned more about him from the tabletop game. And at some point they had day 9, I think, too, doing Magic the Gathering content, and that didn't, I think, catch enough people's attention either. Alright. I'm gonna do this. And then evolve one. And I could have done that and evolved that one. But the main thing to remember about Geek and Sundry is that at this point there is none of that original content coming out on Geek and Sundry. None of the original people who quote unquote owned it, which turned out to not be true at all. It was a parent company secretly. You can see some of that even now on some other YouTube channels. If you hear them, if you hear this phrase over and over again on several different channels, that says something along the lines of "Our channel is mainly supported by viewers by you, like you," it is like a weird wiggle phrase they're trying to say without actually lying to that indicates there's actually a parent company there. So I wouldn't be surprised if G4 came back and it had Adam Sessler and Morgan Webb and Kevin Pereira and possibly some other. I'm just going to play backwards here. Backwards through the whole list and see if we can get some random victories. I wouldn't be surprised if they all came back and then they all quickly showed that they were just too old, or that they were that they just don't have it anymore, or that they're not that interesting. And then quickly we start to see new interns introduced, and these new interns then get promoted. New on-screen talent gets introduced in one way or the other. That's where it really would boil down to, is once you start to see new on-screen talent, and particularly the female characters. The female hosts on Attack of the Show were mostly hired, almost completely hired, for their physical beauty. And so I imagine you'll see that. There's probably a danger if they tried to go into other nerdoms too. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if they tried to go into comic books. It would only be a little bit surprising if they tried to go into anime. I wouldn't be surprised if G4 is much more PC gaming oriented than it ever was before, because PC gaming is much more viable now. I wouldn't be surprised if they started talking about things like Lego and jigsaw puzzles and books and things like that. Just try to expand the concept from video games to a broader audience, which is inherently, even what Attack of the Show was trying to get more of the college gamer bros on board instead of the hardcore nerd gamers out there, which maybe there's less of them out there today than there was in the old days.
Come out wherever you are.
But I think there probably is a decent number of gamer bros out there, or just gamers in general, that don't want to get into a lot of these other nerdoms. It's very easy to see a lot of gamers not wanting to play any anime looking games at all. Like, we clearly see that in sales. And just the coverage.
Quack, you'll see.
Let's see. Let's go ahead and kill that. And then attack there. They might get into tabletop gaming, Dungeons and Dragons, things like that. And again, as a lot of those things may not interest a lot of gamers, and if the gamers feel betrayed and the G4 TV is not at least 95% video game oriented, I think that people will feel betrayed. At least in the case of Geek and Sundry, they launched themselves as being a general nerdum geek YouTube channel. They weren't trying to Trojan horse it, but G4 really needs to be all games. The number one thing that G4 can never do is start airing reruns of Cops or anything like that. Like, it cannot get that far away from its core concept. I tried to say conceit there, but came out concept. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Gale's Quest, which looks like it's a standard RPG. Nothing here. $8.99, English, French, Spain, Spanish, which is weird because I thought I saw some Japanese lettering somewhere. I guess I didn't. Alright, it just says it's a JRPG, when I think an argument definitely could be made that if it does not support the Japanese language, it is not a JRPG.
To understand you.
Okay. See what this does.
In your judgment.
Wanna join us? You're mean. Wanna join us?
There we go. Here we have a game on Steam called Bring Back the Sun by Daniel da Silva, which looks like it's a blocky platforming game, frustration platforming games. Well, actually, it says no jumping above the bottomless pit. Well, yes, jumping above the bottomless pit, but no enemies and no spikes as a selling point, which I don't think I 100% agree with that being a selling point. $2.69, bunch of languages. Visually unimpressive, so not making it to the fall list. Here we have a game on Steam called Catch the Stars, which seems to be a single screen puzzle game. There might be something here. 69 cents, English, Portuguese, Brazil. Put it on the fall list. We'll give it a chance. Seems like it's a puzzle around the idea of you can't cross lines until you've done it in order, so that might actually be a fairly simplistic puzzle. Next, we have a game on Steam called Power Beats VR, and frankly, at a certain point, I feel like some of these videos showing people putting on VR headsets are just stock imagery for multiple games. Yeah.
The world called,
Mm,
I answered.
this is a hard one to see, but it looks like it's just Beat Saber with your fists. See. 11.99 English. Yeah, and you're just punching things with your fist. Which I don't know if why that would be any better or more desirable than Beat Saber. If anything, I think the swing up and down increases your odds of succeeding, and I think Beat Saber is probably the only game that's ever going to be relevant enough to play a game like that. Game Sutra has a blog here if you want to read it called Prototypes Publishing Pitching Oh My, which frankly I think a lot of those elements are probably the things that game developers in general, whether they are just out of college or have been doing it for years, that is probably stuff that they need to work on and get better at. Because you definitely see a lot of like Kickstarter games that have these highly polished, highly finished projects and these pitches that promise way too much, and then they just never deliver and often never finish. Here we have a game on Steam called Daikaiju Daikinsen Versus, which it does look like it's a kaiju fighting game, as in giant monsters from like the or at least implied from the Godzilla universe. But then you've got some anime characters, and it's a beat 'em up, and I don't think beat 'em up's a terrible thought. Might get fairly boring. It's early access, it's free to play, it's English only. Very much might be a low effort game, split screen, player versus player, so there might be very little gameplay to actually play normally, or you might just be beating up the same few kaiju over and over again. It's not a terrible thought, certainly, though, to have a beat 'em up. Although generally I would like to see an ability to destroy more buildings when playing as a giant monster, and unique and different buildings and environments. Here we have a game on Steam here called Kaporia Adventure Ojibi's Revenge, which sounds like a sequel. To me, it looks like this is probably a student project type level of quality. And it's got a lot of the elements of a video game. Heads-up display, map, somewhat mediocrely animated user interface. But then you've got this side button on the side, seemingly always. And some roughness, it feels like, in general. Maybe some survival mechanics and too. This is early access, $3.49. English, French, and Spain and Portuguese, Brazil, Spain, Spanish, and Portuguese, Brazil. I'll give this a chance, but I'm iffy on it, certainly. I can see the beginning of the end, and I will be happy to end this stream since I started so late anyways. Next we have a game on Steam called Metal Commando, which seems to be inspired by games like Metal Slug and Commando, which are two different games. And neither one of them were made by Indie Games 3000. It's $1.97, it's English only. I'll give it a chance. Visually, it looks fine. And so there might be enough content. That would be my real worry here, is that you look at the background here, and it seems like there's very little variety in backgrounds. It looks like there's very little variety in the enemies. Feels like it very possibly is just a single it just a single level type game, or close to a single level. And then, ironically, we have a game called Metal Banana, which looks just awful. $2.84, English only. Here we have a game on Steam called Atlas Rogues, which is tagged as a roguelike. It kind of looks like an XCOM game to me. It's early access, $14.99, third-party account, English full audio. It is single player with online co-op, so I don't know how much single player really is in the game like this. And I don't know if this is really how I'd want to play a roguelike. I don't think it is. I'm gonna risk it here and not put this on the follow list. Instead, I'm gonna just see if people talk about Atlas Rogues. Because I'm mostly out on that idea. I don't think that's gonna work. Alright, well, we can do this, and then we can do this,
Together we are whole.
and then we can end the turn. Here we have a game on Steam called Big Cat Rescue VR, which visually it looks fairly decent, but I feel like you're just gonna get maybe an hour of footage, animated footage, where you see the experience from a large cat, which I don't even know if you get to change what kind of large cat, or if it is just always a orange-striped tiger. Seems to me like it's just an orange-striped tiger. $4.99 is a little too cheap for a VR game. English, Spanish, Latin America. But not Spain Spanish, which usually they make the opposite decision. Here we have a game on Steam called Twisted, a Dark Fairy Tale. From the screenshot, I thought this might be a re-release of that game Wolfie, but by the new company that bought the rights to it. But inherently, there's really no reason to re-release the game Wolfie, since it's all just kind of based on Little Red Riding Hood. And see, this looks like it's a dark fantasy visual novel, and what it's depicting to me is very little, and it's more animated than I expect it to be. And what it actually shows as far as the screenshot seems to be somewhat limited in the visuals. There, you got a lot of people that you're showing almost full length, and instead of zooming in, and even when you have a zoomed in image here, you have it in darkness. $7.99. See, 40,000 words, 40,000 CGs. Interesting. That's gotta be wrong. No, 40 plus CGs. Yeah, I misread that. I'll put this on the follow list, but definitely a hard sell. See, next we have a game on Steam called My Universe School Teacher, which seems to be probably a cell phone game. It does seem to have a decent number of little mini games in it, but I don't know why you want to play any kind of simulation where you're playing as anybody's job. That just sounds boring. $23.99 is way too expensive for this. It's way too expensive for almost any game. Next, we have a game on Steam called Monster Murder, which is probably just Monster Murder in a different language, like Swedish or something. And it looks like a dark screenshot, first-person shooter, horror game, if any of the screenshots want to load.
I bring unto you
Early access, $9.99, English full audio.
Enhance. Fire.
Yeah, no screenshots want to load. So let's come over here. Try this again after reloading the page. Dark screenshot. Bloody dark screenshot. Foggy dark screenshot. Another foggy dark screenshot. Another foggy dark screenshot. Another foggy screenshot. A screenshot with nothing on the screen except for the land generated. Screenshot just showing a table. Mostly just the back of a character. Yeah, they're not really showing a lot here. And the video footage seems to be a lot of werewolves running in a very single file line pattern to attack you. Way too many for good gameplay design. Next, we have a game on Steam called Space Squadron, which looks like it's just a Galaga clone. It's $1.99, English only. There's nothing terrible about that. It just, in my opinion, doesn't belong on Steam. Here we have a game on Steam called Real Politics 2, and I feel like this game is a sequel to a game that literally came out like a week ago. Let's see. It's early access, $26.99, which is way too expensive. Let's see if we can find Real Politics 1 and see where that was coming. Here you have Deep Diving Simulator, Kursk. Real Politics 1 actually came out in 2017. Yeah, none of these games still look good. Here you have a COVID game. It's just, even in the case of this developer who isn't inherently flooding Steam with terrible, like, real world events games, that they're not really doing anything great either. I don't think I've seen any game really that would fall into this category do anything interesting with it. It'd be very, very easy for Valve to say no political games. We only want apolitical games. That's not to say you can't have politics in the game. We'll still allow Call of Duty Black Ops with Reagan in it. We'll still allow games with Hitler in it. We just don't want current politicians who are currently in the running or feasibly are in the running for a political job position displayed. Like, current politicians would solve that problem very easily. Moving on, TechCrafter has this article. The Game Awards 2020 nominees show big wins for PlayStation, which I wouldn't be surprised if PlayStation swined and dined Jeff Keighley a decent amount. Or, I mean, this would have been, I guess, last year too, so last year might have very well been better on PlayStation than Microsoft. Although, once again, everything's better on PC, so go that route. So they have Game of the Year, Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Animal Crossing, Last of Us 2. I think Animal Crossing would win that easily. Best Game Direction, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Half-Life Alyx. Half-Life Alyx will win that. Last of Us 2. They'll try to give Last of Us 2 something, but I think they'll fail somewhat. Best narrative, 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim, FF7, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades. I think there's a decent chance that Last of Us 2 gets thrown a bone in that direction, whereas Hades probably deserves to win. Best Art Director, Ori and the Will of Wisps might win because it's the only one that might win there, although it might win Best Score in Music, as it is too. I wouldn't be surprised if Hades wins there. Or you could also go Final Fantasy VII, but that's still kind of remake the graphics. Art direction of Ghost of Tsushima might win too. Best audio design, they may throw a bone to Doom Eternal, but I wouldn't be surprised if they threw it to like Resident Evil 3 or Half-Life Alyx. Again, maybe they'll throw a bone to The Last of Us 2. Best performance, this is a point where they could very easily give an award to Last of Us 2 for one of the actors there, whereas I wouldn't be surprised one bit if they snuffed, that's not the right word, if they didn't give it to a Japanese actor, or at least a Japanese sounding name, just because the Western Video Game Awards people don't care about Japanese games and Japanese actors.
Is in my orbit.
Play my part.
Gonna go ahead and evolve this for safety's sake.
How much force can you withstand?
Let's see. Then games for Impact, you have a game called If Bound, Kentucky Route Zero, Spiritfarer, Tell Me Why, and Through the Darkest of Times. I think Tell Me Why might be the most SJW-y game on that list. I don't know exactly the story of Through the Darkest of Times, so I would bet Tell Me Why, whereas Spiritfarer might win just because it has more of a recognizable name to it, and people may have actually played that one. Let's see.
Sleep.
Best ongoing, we have Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Call of Duty Warzone, Fortnite, No Man's Sky. Unless you're giving it to Fortnite for last year, I would assume Destiny 2. I doubt seriously Apex Legends and No Man's Sky. Call of Duty Warzone might be a chance. Best Indie, Carrion, Fall Guys, Hades, Spelunky 2, Spiritfarer. I think Spiritfarer probably wins that, or Hades wins that. Fall Guys was a flash in the pan. Carrion was a bit of a flash in the pan. Best mobile game, Among Us will almost certainly win that, although Genshin Impact might get second place there. The others have no chance. Best community sport, maybe you go with Fall Guys or Fortnite there, or Destiny 2. Best VR AR, you go Half-Life Alyx, almost certainly on that. Innovation and accessibility, I think that's probably a new category for this year.
Do you know my master?
It's the small things in
Let's
life.
see.
Accept harmony.
Listen, nothing in this gotcha.
Cleansing mode.
Let's see, where are we? Innovation and accessibility could be any one of those, because I have no idea as far as accessibility. I'm not even going to venture a guess. Best action, Doom Eternal might win there. Maybe Neo. Best Action Adventure, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, maybe. Spider-Man Miles Morales, probably. Last of Us 2, probably not. Best Role-Playing, Final Fantasy VII could get a win there. Or they could go straight with Persona 5 Royale, but I don't know. I don't think the others have a chance. Best Fighting Game, I didn't even know they were going to do that, but I wouldn't be surprised one bit if it's Mortal Kombat 11. Probably should be Grand Blue Fantasy versus, or maybe they'll do Street Fighter 5 even. It definitely won't be these last two. Best Family, Animal Crossing, almost certainly. Mario Kart Life's home circuit's not going to win. Best Sim and Strategy, Flight Simulator might win that one. Best Sports Game, Dirt 5, or no, probably Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Best Multiplayer, Among Us will win that. Best Debut, Carrion might win that. They might throw it to Raj and Epic Adventure just because it's the first Indian game. Phasmophobia, probably not. Roki, not. Don't even know what Mortal Shell is. Content Creator of the Year, I have no idea on that one. And I don't think there should be an awards given any of those, frankly. Best Esports Game, like Counter-Strike Global Offensive, probably not. I think League of Legends still will probably win that. Best Esports Athlete, no clue. Best Esports Team, no clue. Best Esports Events, no clue. Best Esports Host, no clue. So there's just going to be a lot of esports focus on the Game Awards in particular also. I don't particularly want to read, like, play another game, so I'm just going to call it here and just wrap up. TechRaptor has an article here, 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors, or just known as 999, 10 years. So it's been 10 years since that first game came out. I covered it on my channel. It was a lot of visual novel stuff, frankly. A lot of visual novel stuff. And some kind of weird anime stuff, like it never really gets explained why this lady is dressed the way she is. Or really even why this guy is dressed the way he is. But yeah, it goes on really, really long. And the game I have has this whole second experience for the sequel, which include characters that are different. So the original 999 is this character, this character, this character, and this character, this character, this character, this character, this character, and this character, which add that up, 7, 8, 9 is 9 people, where the second game is all of these characters at the bottom. And so I do need to get back to that, but I'm definitely not going to play a JRPG and a visual novel at the same time. That'll take way too much time. Gamatsu has an article here. Star Wars Squadrons, November 25th update to add a new map and components. December update to add new starfighters and custom maps. So, yeah, I don't know. I can't even remember when Squadrons came out, or I don't know if there's really any reason to play that game. Gamatsu has the Game Awards nominees also. They didn't break down in the nominations before, though, who was publishing / developing the games. So going through the actual individual games, it's fairly easy to think, no, none of those were Sony games, but the truth is, like, Ghost of Tsushima was published by Sony, and Last of Us Part 2 was published by Sony, so that does mean inherently they win the mass number of nominations, because how many games last year did Microsoft actually publish, or would they even have given given acclaim or an admitted Microsoft published. You have Ori and the Will of Wisp from Xbox Game Studios, and that's about it. And Nintendo didn't put out that many that were nominated either. So it's kind of a disingenuous way to phrase it to say Sony is the big winner in nominations, in the fact that they made and published. They did not make either game, but they published 2 games in that year. Whereas with all the acquisitions Microsoft is making, they may very well become the publisher that just publishes a bunch of games and wins by default at that level. I don't know if that's the best business strategy, though, is to try and win a bunch of awards that don't mean anything. Next, we have a game on Steam here called War Room, which is already mixed and does look like it is kind of a bomber simulator. If it wasn't mixed, I might consider it. $26.99 is way too expensive, though. Bunch of languages. Yeah. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Divine Stone, which looks like it's a puzzle game, maybe with some horror elements. $5.99 English and Russian. It is questionable, frankly. It looks like it really keeps you in just like one room the whole game. I'm going to put it on the fall list, but almost certainly it's not going to succeed past that point. Next, we have a game on Steam called The Lost Shrine, which looks like it might be a Witness-style puzzle game, Myst-style puzzle game. But it requires VR. It's $8.49, English, French, and Spanish. Put it on the fall list. But yeah, I'm not sure if enough people will ever buy a VR game like that to review it. Here we have a game called Seditionist Tower Defense. Maybe that's how you pronounce that. Whatever it is, it does look like a tower defense game set in space for no real reason. It's free to play, English only. Well, it is free to play, so I guess the price is right on that, but yeah, it does also look pretty terrible. Here we have a game on Steam called Underzone, which seems to be swapping between several different visual aspects. Some kind of roguelike where you build your robot every run. Early access, $19.99, full audio. I think that's worth $19.99. Let's see if we can figure out. Yeah, I don't know. I'll put it on the fall list, but I question that one. It doesn't catch my attention. Here we have a game called Brain Break, which seems to be a box pushing game in 3D, which arguably some of these box pushing games probably don't need to be in 3D at all and just get more confused and waste everybody's time. But at the very least, this is an interesting way to potentially like work with 3D jiggle physics and learn how to program that while also making some kind of product that maybe deserves to be sold. $3.59 English and Russian. So you take your pick there. This is either a Russian game or this is a company programmer teaching themselves how to animate jiggle physics and doing a decent job on it. Regardless, though, it's still not good enough to really make it to the fall list. Here we have the 12 Labors of Hercules, 11 Painted Adventure, which seems like they are constantly releasing more games in this series. So it's somebody out there must like it enough that it sells. $8.99. None of these games though look interesting to me at all. These resource management games. Here we have a game called Synthetic Hazard, which is tagged as an action experimental shooter. Right. It looks like a first-person shooter where you're shooting some monsters in slightly generic areas. Early access, free, English full audio. See, if this was a student project, I'd cover this. But if it's free, and it's always going to be free, then I'm going to just leave it off the follow list and say check it out if you're interested. Let's see. Yeah, update the terms and service on YouTube. Let's see. Updated terms or collect, harvest any information that might identify a person. They added or faces to the terms of service, so apparently they're going to start doing Face ID on videos, and maybe at a certain point there will just be links that tell you go watch this video because this same person is in this video as the other person. Rights to monetize, that's YouTube's right to monetize your content. Let's see. This agreement does not entitle you to any payments. Starting November 18th, any payments you may be entitled to receive from YouTube under any other agreement between you and YouTube, including example payments under the YouTube Partner Program, channel memberships, and Super Chat will be treated as royalties. If required by law, Google will withhold taxes from such payments. Starting today, they'll begin slowly adding ads on a limited number of videos from channels not on the YouTube Partner Program. So they literally are going to start rolling ads on people who don't want ads. That means the creator that's not in the YouTube Partner Program, you may see ads on some of your videos. Since you're currently not in the YouTube Partner Program, you won't receive a share of your revenue. Wow, just total BS there. That is. So they literally are going to profit off of your content without paying you a dime. Yeah. I figured there was going to be something awful in this new agreement. For monetizing creators, creators will be considered royalties as a for a U.S. tax perspective. I don't think YouTube gets to determine whether something's considered a royalty or not. Some creators may be required to submit tax information, and they may withhold taxes. So that is a big difference in what they're saying they're doing now. They're no longer paying you because they're allowing you to run ads on your content. They are literally owning or licensing your content and paying you royalties if you are in the YouTube Partner Program. And if you're not in the YouTube Partner Program, it is 100% screw you. We're still going to make your channel worse and put ads on your channel, but we're not paying you anything for that. And that seems incredibly unfair. And if there ever was an argument for breaking up big companies like YouTube, they just made a great argument for it right there. Moving on, I'm not going to get into a big rant as a small YouTube content creator. Friend me on Steam, gift me a gift gift card. Right now would be a great time to do that, frankly. I'm a little bit over budget, so when the big Black Friday / December winter sale happens on Steam, it would be nice if somebody gifted me $50, $100 type thing, but even a couple of dollars, or even just friending me on Steam and gifting me a game that is on sale for a couple of dollars. Any little bit would help. There, Gematsu has this article. A Kickstarter campaign was launched for a customizable platform fighting game called Framemakers for PC, which has some of the indie people that we've seen before and some newer characters I don't fully recognize. Frankly, I don't see how you make a Smash Bros. Clone around any characters like this, though. I just don't think Smash Bros. Works unless you have a lot of people, a lot of characters of real interest. I would also say that some of these characters have definitely been in other Smash Bros. Style games, so it feels like they are potentially double dipping here. Somebody's double dipping on trying to sell a Smash Bros. Clone with indie game characters. It seems like it's been done. Here's some big news. Ubisoft Singapore's managing director, I suppose, is stepping down after misconduct allegations. He's the director of Skull and Bones developer at Ubisoft Singapore, although he remains at the French publisher in an unspecific role. So he was one of the many people at Ubisoft, I'm sure, that was where allegations of misconduct were levied, and seemingly those allegations were at least mostly legitimate. So we're seeing some slow retribution in the sense that people are being left completely alone at Ubisoft to step down on their own timeline. But maybe that's the best anybody is ever going to get. So it's up to each individual whether they want to boycott Ubisoft as a company or not. It'd be fairly easy, particularly if you're not playing any of the Assassin's Creed games. Here we have a TechRaptor article. Pokemon Go Beyond update will increase the level capacity, the level cap, and add Generation 6, which seems like this is probably not the time to be upgrading and adding new content to Pokemon Go, but maybe it will be very polished. Cyan retweeted that the Mist for Oculus Rift has a release date now. See if we can actually see the release date. I don't know what these other two games are. Pistol Whip 2089 and Warhammer 40k Battle Sister. Interesting. I don't think I've ever seen any indication that there were any female warriors in the Warhammer 40k universe. I would have almost assumed that they were genetically engineered to all be male or look like male presenting characters, even if they were biologically female. And certainly Warhammer probably should get slightly more woke and introduce more female characters in general. This is just a trailer with Mist and Oculus, which still probably just going to be very similar to real Mist. I don't think you're going to have too much of a difference in that experience. It'll better graphics are better graphics for sure, and almost certainly there will be yet another re-release of Mist with those better graphics, but you really can't change much there. Otherwise, people would be fairly upset. Like they probably should just try to make a Mist 2 or a Final Fantasy VII style remake where missed one happens and the puzzles are mostly the same, but then there's all of a sudden different puzzles and a different turn of events. Like there are pages to collect, but the pages don't free the two brothers. Instead, they free completely different people. It's set on a mist island 1,000 years in the future or something like that. Check has an article here. Final Fantasy VII has been, 6 has been confirmed by a Capcom leak. Which, okay. No real surprise there. That wasn't Final Fantasy, that was Street Fighter 6. Here we have a game on Steam called Just Old, where apparently you're playing as an old person. A side-scrolling platformer. I don't think there's enough animation here to interest me, or enough enemies and gameplay. And I don't think there's enough of a gimmick around the idea of playing as an old person. $2.39. 5 achievements. Yeah, nothing there of interest. Next, we have a game on Steam called Who's the Liar, which is some kind of detective game. Where you also have to investigate. Seems almost like if you took the idea of Clue, but put some mini games into it and didn't just have the board game aspect of Clue. Might be interesting. Early access, $1.79. Portuguese, Brazil, and English. I'll put that on the follow list. Let's see, with that brings me to the Humble Bundle, and I bet there's no new Humble Bundles. Let's see, do we see any new Humble Bundles? There's a Sweet Farm Fall Games Bundle here. If you pay $1, you get Toe Jam and Earl Back in the Groove Out There Omega Edition. That would probably be a great way to get Toe Jam and Earl, since it's not particularly a well-received game. If you pay $7.75, you get Super Hot, Moonlighter, and Chuckle Cherry Edition. Then if you pay $12, you get a Hat in Time, which is not a bad price for a Hat in Time, even though I didn't really like it. Coffee Talk, Sigma Theory, Global Cold War, and Necronator Dead Wrong. Haven't heard of that one. Let's see. Can you see reviews on things like this? Sometimes it feels like you can see reviews, and sometimes it seems like you can't. It's not a bad. That's not a bad bundle. It's been a while since I've seen a bundle that even slightly works for me. And I already have a Hat in Time, so it doesn't completely work for me, but not a terrible bundle. Anyways, so then that will bring me back to Twitter. And let's see if there's any big... The Epic CEO has responded to the Apple fee change. It says Apple fee changes provide no relief to customers from the Apple tax inflation, which arguably I don't know where the inflation on the idea of Apple tax is what they mean by that, because it's not like the iPhones have gotten considerably more expensive for the hardware. They've always been expensive. It's always been 30% on the cost of the price of the game, and I don't think Apple games have gone up significantly in price on average. So unless you're just making the argument that inflation in general has happened and people's wages have not gone up with inflation, and minimum wage has not gone up with inflation, then I don't know what they're really talking about. This is weird. Let's see. Double Fine Adventure covers the exciting process of making Broken Age from Kickstarter to finish, and they've now put it in a 4-disc set, and they're now selling it showing little cartoons of the people who made it. Which, I mean, that might be as good as you're ever going to get, though, as far as documentaries around games being developed. There's Indie Game the movie and some others, I'm sure, that cover or follow people developing games, but most of the time that's done in secret, and most of the things that are done are boring anyways, so they don't make good footage. Anyways, we've been going 2 hours and 15 minutes, so even when I do try to rush, and it doesn't really happen that much, I save like 15 minutes at most. That's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.